And we all know the story of the Prophet ﷺ and Abu Bakr and Umar, the famous story reported in Tirmidhi, that Umar ibn al-Khattab did not have anything to eat. And I just like to point out here that the Sahaba lived very tough times in the early part of Medina. Before the conquest began, before the money began pouring in, Medina was a very difficult place to live in. And when you didn't have dates, there's only one season dates are there. Once they run out for the rest of the 6 months, you are living a very difficult life in the middle of the desert. And there's many stories of this nature. And so once Umar ibn al-Khattab is walking in the streets, and he sees the Prophet ﷺ sitting, and this is at noon. And at noon, nobody walks in the streets in the summertime. It's too hot. So he says to the Prophet ﷺ, Ya Rasulullah, what are you doing outside? And the Prophet ﷺ knows that Umar is outside for one reason. And that is he doesn't have food at home. So he says the same reason as you. Same reason as you. I mean, I'm just sitting outside, there's nothing to eat at home. And as they're sitting there, Abu Bakr as well is walking. Because you cannot sit at home and you're hungry, you just want to walk around, just go outside. And the three of them are sitting there just talking, when one of the Sahaba, Abu Haytham, is rushing back to work, to home from work. So he finishes his chores, he's rushing home. So he says, Ya Rasulullah, what are you three doing at this time of the day? And so Umar says, well, we didn't have anything to eat, so we're just sitting here basically talking, So Abu Haytham says, La, this is not possible. This is not possible. That the three best people, now you're sitting here. So he knows that he has a goat, an old goat at home. So he tells them, come to my house and I'll give you food. I will prepare food for you. Come to my house. So he rushes home. He only has one goat that is past the age of giving milk. It's an old goat. So he tells his wife, by Allah, we need to sacrifice this goat. We need to get rid of the goat. And you cook the food, I will knead the dough, we're going to make some bread. So we will give him meat and bread. And so the Prophet ﷺ, Abu Bakr and Umar, they came and they ate meat and bread, which is of course the luxurious food item of that time and to this day. And then what was the response of the Prophet ﷺ when he finished all of this? After not having anything at home, he reminded Abu Bakr and Umar. He reminded them that they left their houses hungry. And Allah gave them this meal. Ya Abu Bakr and Umar, ثُمَّ لَتُسْأَلُنَّ يَوْمَئِذٍ عَنِ النَّعِيمِ. Allah is going to ask you on that day about this food. What did you do with it? And did you thank me enough for it? SubhanAllah, I mean, wallahi, one of us, we three meals a day, we don't even think about Allah's blessings, right? And the Prophet ﷺ is so conscious that Allah is going to ask you about this na'im. ثُمَّ لَتُسْأَلُ. You're going to be asked about this blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you. And as for his humility, the Prophet ﷺ frequently rode donkeys. And even though he had the money to purchase a horse and a camel, and he had a camel, al-Qaswa, he had a camel. But the Prophet ﷺ had no problem riding a donkey frequently. And during the battle of Badr, the Prophet ﷺ had to distribute the camels amongst the entire group of people. How many people came to Badr? You all know. How many people were in Badr? 314, 15. And there were roughly 75 camels. Do the math. How many people per camel? 3 or 4. 3 or 4 people per camel. Okay, every single camel was given. Now some people had horses, others. So roughly it came out to 3 people per camel. Has to be divided. And so the Prophet ﷺ assigned Ali and Abu Lubaba to himself with the camel. So the one camel with these 3 people. And everybody else has their own 3 camel. Now, put yourself in the shoes of Ali and Abu Lubaba. You're supposed to share a camel with the Prophet. And what are you going to say? Take it. It's yours. So Ali says, Ya Rasulullah, both of us are young men. He's trying to make him feel as if we're doing this. We're not doing you a favor. We just, Ya Rasulullah, I am young. I'm in my 30s. Abu Lubaba is also young. Ya Rasulullah, we're young. You go ahead and ride the camel. Now, there's many things. The Prophet ﷺ could have said, okay, fine. And subhanAllah, he is the leader, by the way. And wallahi, forget everything aside. The leader deserves extra protection. Forget religiosity, spirituality. The leader deserves extra respect, right? The commander, he's not the person that should be treated like the private, right? The 4-star, 5-star general. He's reached a level now, you don't treat him like the private. right? So he could have said, okay, fine, and nobody would have said anything. Or he even could have said, no, let's all share it. But he didn't want to make them feel that I'm doing you a favor by doing this. What did he say? He smiled back at them, and he said that neither are the two of you any stronger than me, and nor am I in any lesser need of the reward than you two. I also need the ajr of walking. We're going to share. SubhanAllah. Look at, neither are the two of you any strong. He couldn't fight with younger. I mean, Ali is younger. So he says, neither are the two of you any stronger than me. Okay, you might be younger, but in terms of physical health, yes, I am just as strong as you. And nor am I in any lesser need of Allah's rewards for walking and struggling. So we're going to share the camel. And so, he was a man of his word, and he shared the camel, even though, truth be told, it was not necessary at all, right? He is the leader, he is Rasulullah, and yet he shared the camel with them. And as for his good manners, subhanAllah, how much can we say about his good manners? Anas ibn Malik said, and Anas ibn Malik lived one of the longest of the Sahaba. He lived until he was over 110 years old, Anas ibn Malik. He lived one of the longest lives. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ made dua for him, right? After all that he had done, one day his mother came, Anas' mother, and she said, Ya Rasulullah, your little servant, Khuwaydimuka Anas, your little servant Anas, he's done so much for you, make dua for him. That's all the mother wanted, wasn't it, right? She just wants the barakah from the Prophet ﷺ. Ya Rasulullah, Khuwaydimuka Anas, make dua for him. So the Prophet ﷺ said, Oh Allah, barik lahu, give him barakah in his life, and in his wealth, and in his progeny. One dua. And Anas lived to see the results of this dua. Give him barakah in his life. He was one of the last of the Sahaba to die. And he lived to be over 110 at a time when the average death rate was 30, 28, something like this. He lived to be 110. And he said, give him barakah in his money. They used to say that if Anas turned a rock over, he would find gold underneath it. He was so rich that anything he did, just, it's, as they say, the gold touch, right? It was like that. And people would love to become business partners with Anas, right? And they would just say, look, just sign the paper, we'll do the money, everything. They just wanted to get the barakah. I mean, not sign the paper, you get the point. Anything, just be a part of this, right? People would love to be business partners with Anas because they knew it would be successful. And he amassed a large fortune at the end of his life. And he had so many grandchildren and great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren, he couldn't even count them. Could not even count them. In his own lifetime, because the Prophet ﷺ said, بَارِكْ لَهُ فِي أَهْلِهِ وَفِي وَلَدِهِ فِي عُمُرِهِ وَفِي أَهْلِهِ وَفِي مَالِهِ. And these three things the Prophet ﷺ made dua for, and all three of them he was given that barakah. This Anas ibn Malik, he says that I served the Prophet ﷺ for 10 years. I served him, I didn't just visit him, I lived with him for 10 years. And not once did he rebuke me. Not once did the word uff come from his mouth. Now uff, as you know, is the least word to express irritation. It's not even a word of anger. It's not a word of, it's the word to express irritation. It's like, just like that. Like that. It's just that is the equivalent of uff. And the Prophet ﷺ never, ever said the word uff. And Anas said, he never said to me, why did you do this? And he never said to me, why did you not do that? And subhanAllah, as they say, by how a person treats his family, you know him. By a person's treatment of his inner circle, that's how you know him. What side we show to our family, to our spouses, to our children, that is the real us. It's easy to be somebody else in the masjid. It's easy to be somebody else in the workplace. But who you are in front of your wife, in front of your kids, that is the real you. And Anas ibn Malik is saying, for 10 years, I never heard the word uff come from his mouth. That is the perfection of his manners. And there's a beautiful narration as well later on, that once the Prophet ﷺ sent me on a chore to do, and on the way I saw some kids playing. So I started playing with them. Now, imagine the Prophet telling him, go tell somebody something, go do this and that. Anas is a kid in the end of the day, he's 7 years old in the end of the day, right? So he's going to do the chore, he finds some kids playing, and I completely forgot about the chore. And then the Prophet ﷺ came out in search that whatever the chore was, it's not happening. Right? So the person, maybe he calls somebody, it's not happening. So he's searching, what happened? And he finds Anas playing with the street children there. Right? And so somebody held on to my ears and picked me up. And I turned around and it was the Prophet ﷺ smiling at me. It's like playing with him. It's like you forget your chore now. Playing with him, not even getting irritated at him. Right? And subhanAllah, where do we stand when it comes to our own families and how easy, and I'm just as guilty as the rest of you, how easy it is to get irritated and get angry. But again, he is our role model, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And even when people showed him the utmost contempt and the utmost disrespect, he maintained his dignity and his composure. Once a group of Yahud came and they wanted to mock him, and they said, winking at one another, Assalamu alaikum, Assalamu alaikum. Not As-salam, Assam. And Assam means, may death be upon you. May a curse be upon you. It's like they're changing it, right? And they're winking at one another. And so, the Prophet ﷺ maintained his composure. He said, wa alaykum. Maintained his composure. Aisha got so angry that from behind the curtain she screamed out. It's like, may you be cursed, and may Allah Azza wa Jal cause you to perish. How dare you say this to the Prophet ﷺ? To which the Prophet ﷺ rebuked Aisha and said, calm down, O Aisha, calm down. Don't you know that whatever is gentle is beautiful? And whenever gentleness is in something, it makes it beautiful. And whenever harshness is in something, it makes it ugly. So after they left, she said, Ya Rasulullah, how could you have controlled your temper? They came and they cursed you and they said, Assalamu alaikum. So he responded, didn't you hear my response? Wa alaykum, back to you. That's what I said, back to you. But he maintained his dignity and his composure. He didn't stoop to their level by doing what they did. He said, yes, you want to do this? Okay, back to you as well. And as for his bravery, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, Ali ibn Abi Talib says, and we're going to talk about this in the Battle of Badr, this relates to the Battle of Badr, that when the fighting would become severe, we would seek refuge around the Prophet ﷺ. When the fighting would become severe, we would seek refuge around the Prophet ﷺ. And Anas ibn Malik said that once in Medina, in the middle of the night, the people heard a loud commotion and a loud sound coming. And they didn't know what it was. So timidly, they came outside their houses, wondering, what is this noise? Is an enemy attacking? Is there some type of beast out on the loose? What is happening? And they found that the Prophet ﷺ had already gone in the direction of the sound alone. And he found the horse of Abu Talha, and he simply rode it without a saddle. That's manliness. Without a saddle. And he's galloping towards the sound, and he had his sword around his neck, because he's galloping without a saddle. And he's coming back to the people of Medina saying, you have nothing to fear, I've checked it out, you have nothing to fear. Anas ibn Malik is narrating one incident, right? What does that show us of the bravery? That he hears the sound, he's the first person to go, jump on a horse without even the saddle, takes his sword, run, and then he's running back to the people of Medina, I've checked it out, nothing to fear. Whatever it wasn't anything for them to be worried about. This is the bravery of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Once, generosity. As for his generosity, the Prophet ﷺ would never refuse any request. He would never refuse any asking of him. And that is why one of the Sahabiyat said that it was possible for any little girl to go to the hand of the Prophet ﷺ and ask her to do something for her. Ask him to do something for her. The little girl had some help, she needed maybe to carry something, and she would have no fear to go and ask the Prophet ﷺ to help her out. And it is once narrated that the Prophet ﷺ was wearing a garment that had holes in it. It was not appropriate that the Prophet ﷺ was wearing a garment like this. So one of the Sahaba gifted him a very beautiful and a very good garment. And he went home and he wore that garment and he came outside. One of the Sahaba immediately said, Ya Rasulullah, can you give me this garment as a gift? So the Prophet ﷺ turned to him and said, Naam, yes. He went back home. He wore the same clothes that he had just took off. He'd literally been wearing it for 1 minute. And he came back wearing the tattered garment, and he gave him the new one. After a while, he went back inside his house. All of the Sahaba, they jumped on this other one. How could you have asked the Prophet ﷺ? You knew he wouldn't, look at what they said. You knew that he would never turn down a request. Look at how they rebuked him. You knew that he wouldn't say no to you. How could you do this? So he said, before you get angry at me, I'm not doing this to wear. I want to use this as my kafan, to show the generosity of the Prophet ﷺ in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I want to use this as my cloth to be buried in. That's why I did it, right? So he had his own reason for doing that. I mean, no doubt, perhaps it was better to leave it for the process, but he had his own reason. I'm not doing this to take it off as that. I want this to be worn around me. That in the qabr, this is what I want to be wearing, and so I asked him to give it to me.